Welcome back, everyone. Ready for another deep dive?
Oh, I'm always up for a deep dive.
Excellent. Today, we're heading to Bangladesh,
Sounds fascinating.
but not just any Bangladesh. We're
Whoa.
time traveling to compare the childhoods of 90s kids and Gen Z.
That's a really interesting comparison.
Imagine a world before smartphones and constant internet access. Remember dial-up tones.
Ugh, the screech of the modem.
Now, fast forward to today's kids who can't imagine life without YouTube and TikTok.
It's a completely different world.
Let's start with something everyone can relate to, entertainment.
Okay, entertainment.
For 90s kids in Bangladesh, family time often revolved around the television.
Yeah.
I bet some of you remember crowding around to watch shows like Meena,
Oh, of course.
Tom and Jerry, or Mickey Mouse Clubhouse.
Classic cartoons.
Maybe even catching some local dramas with the family.
It was a shared experience.
TV was a shared
A
experience
communal event.
that brought everyone together.
You had to be there when it was on, or you missed out. But Gen Z, they've grown up with streaming services.
Yeah.
Like YouTube, Netflix, and TikTok.
Endless options.
They have a library of personalized content available at their fingertips anytime, anywhere.
That's such a huge difference.
It really is.
I can't imagine having to wait for a specific time to watch my favorite shows. It makes you wonder if something is lost with this shift to personalized entertainment,
Yeah.
that sense of shared experience, and anticipation.
That's an interesting thought.
What do you think?
Well, on the one hand, Gen Z has access to a wider variety of content than any previous generation. They can explore their own interests, really curate their own entertainment experience.
Yeah.
But I see your point. There is something to be said for the shared experience of watching something together, discussing it afterward, and having those collective memories. It's almost like a cultural touchstone that's less common now.
Okay. Let's shift gears to school life.
Okay, school.
I bet many 90s kids in Bangladesh have vivid memories of classrooms filled with textbooks,
Lots of textbooks.
chalkboards, and minimal technology.
The good old days.
The simple joys of scribbling notes, solving problems on paper, and then bursting out onto the playground for some much-needed fun.
Oh, absolutely. Remember those outdoor games?
Yeah?
I can practically hear the laughter and shouts of kids playing Langdi.
Langdi.
Langdi, yeah. It's a classic Bangladeshi game where you hop on one foot and try to tag your friends. It was all about physical activity, social interaction, using your imagination.
Sounds fun.
But Gen Z, they're navigating a different kind of school experience
Yeah.
with online classes, tablets, e-learning apps, and just this constant flow of digital information.
Wow. That's a world away from my school days.
It is.
It's incredible how technology has revolutionized learning. But I have to admit, I'm a little nostalgic for those simpler times. What do you think are some of the biggest changes for Gen Z in terms of their educational experience?
Well, one of the most significant shifts is the sheer volume of information they're exposed to.
Yeah, I can imagine.
While 90s kids had to rely on textbooks and libraries, Gen Z has access to a limitless digital library at their fingertips.
True.
It's a powerful tool, but it also raises questions about information overload, critical thinking skills, and the ability to really discern reliable sources from misinformation.
That's a really important point. I know I sometimes feel overwhelmed by the constant stream of information online. It makes you wonder how Gen Z is processing and filtering all of that input.
And it's not just the volume of information, it's
Yeah.
also the way they're learning.
Oh, okay.
Gen Z is growing up in a world of instant gratification and constant stimulation. It's a fast-paced environment where attention spans are being tested, and the ability to focus deeply on a single task might be changing. It's something educators and researchers are still trying to understand fully.
It really makes you think, doesn't it?
It does.
I mean, I remember spending hours lost in a book or engrossed in a single project.
Right.
Do you think Gen Z has the same capacity for deep focus?
It's a great question, and there's no easy answer. I think Gen Z is developing different cognitive skills, like multitasking and quickly processing information. But whether that comes at the expense of deep focus is something we need to explore further.
Definitely food for thought.
Absolutely.
All right, let's switch gears again.
Okay.
How about we talk about something a little lighter, like sports?
Sounds good.
I bet for many 90s kids in Bangladesh, cricket was more than just a game.
Oh, yeah.
It was a national obsession.
Absolutely.
Street cricket with makeshift bats and balls, the thrill of watching the Bangladesh national team play in the World Cup, it was a shared passion that united the country. Those are the days when you could walk down any street and see kids imitating their cricketing heroes.
You're taking me back.
I can practically hear the cheers and feel the excitement.
Oh.
But for Gen Z, the sporting landscape has expanded.
Oh, yeah.
Now they've got esports like PUBG and Fortnite competing for their attention,
Right.
with massive online tournaments and professional gamers earning huge followings.
It's a whole new world of competition and fandom. And it's not just about watching either.
Yeah.
Gen Z is actively participating in these digital sports, honing their skills, and forming online communities around their shared passion for gaming.
It's amazing how technology has opened up these new avenues for competition and entertainment.
It is.
But I wonder if there's a difference in the kind of fandom and engagement compared to traditional sports like cricket.
Hmm.
What do you think?
That's a great question. I think there are definitely some similarities and some key differences.
Okay.
With both traditional sports and esports, you have passionate fans who identify with teams and players, who celebrate victories and mourn defeats.
Yeah.
But with esports, there's this different level of accessibility and interactivity. Fans can connect directly with players online, they can participate in tournaments themselves, and the boundaries between spectator and participant are kind of blurred.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like a whole new level of immersion and engagement that wasn't possible before. Speaking of new levels, let's talk about technology itself.
Okay, technology.
For 90s kids, the technology landscape was vastly different. Remember those clunky desktop computers?
Oh, yeah, I remember those.
Dial-up internet connections that took forever to load a single web page, and the absolute magic of finally getting online.
I remember the sound of the modem connecting.
Oh, absolutely. And those floppy disks.
Oh, the floppy disk.
Remember the feeling of saving a file and hearing that satisfying click? It was a different world where technology was something you had to actively seek out and engage with. It wasn't constantly at your fingertips like it is for Gen Z.
It wasn't always on, that's for sure.
And let's not forget those classic gaming consoles
Yeah.
like Nintendo and Game Boy.
Oh, another nostalgia.
I spent countless hours playing Super Mario Bros. And Tetris with my friends.
What were some of your favorite childhood tech gadgets?
Oh, definitely the Game Boy. I was obsessed with Pokemon Red and Blue.
Pokemon, yeah. And I remember saving up my allowance for ages to buy a Walkman
Oh, the Walkman?
so I could listen to my favorite cassette tapes on the go.
That's great.
It was a simpler time, but there was a certain charm to those older technologies.
I completely agree. There was something special about the tactile experience.
Yeah.
The anticipation of waiting for things to load and the joy of discovering something new in a less curated, more organic way.
Exactly. It fostered a sense of patience and appreciation that might be less common in today's world of instant gratification.
It's definitely a different world for Gen Z who have grown up with smartphones, tablets, and lightning-fast internet connections.
It is.
They've never known a world without constant connectivity,
Always connected.
and their access to information and entertainment is unparalleled.
They have the world at their fingertips.
And let's not forget the social media platforms that have become such an integral part of their lives.
Right.
Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok. These are the spaces where they connect with friends, share their experiences, and shape their identities.
It's how they socialize.
It's amazing to think about how much technology has transformed their social landscapes.
It has.
But I wonder if there's a trade-off.
A trade-off.
Are they missing out on some of the deeper, more meaningful connections that come with face-to-face interaction?
That's a question researchers are still grappling with.
Yeah.
On the one hand, these digital platforms allow Gen Z to connect with people from all over the world, to find communities and support systems that they might not have access to otherwise.
Right.
But it's also true that social media can be a breeding ground for comparison, anxiety, and just this constant pressure to present a perfect image online, which can be detrimental to mental health and well-being.
That's true.
It's a complex and evolving landscape, and it's important to consider both the benefits and the potential downsides.
You're absolutely right. It's a fascinating and ever-changing dynamic.
Yeah.
Speaking of change, how about we talk about something that's always evolving?
Yeah.
Fashion.
Oh, I love this topic. Fashion.
Yeah.
It's such a powerful form of self-expression, and it reflects so much about a culture and a generation.
It does.
I'm curious to hear your thoughts on 90s fashion in Bangladesh.
Okay.
What were some of the defining trends?
Well, for me, it was all about a blend of traditional Bangladeshi styles with influences from Bollywood and Western trends.
Okay, so a mix.
Yeah. Think Kurtis, polos, those classic jeans and sneakers, there was a certain simplicity and timelessness to the fashion.
Yeah.
And it felt very much rooted in the local culture.
I completely agree. There was a sense of practicality and comfort to the clothing, and it reflected a more laid-back approach to style.
Right.
Trends moved at a much slower pace back then.
Yeah.
And there wasn't the same pressure to keep up with the latest fads.
It's so true.
It is.
But hold on tight, because we're about to fast forward to the world of Gen Z fashion,
Yeah.
where things move at lightning speed and self-expression reigns supreme.
This should be interesting.
Get ready for a whirlwind of trends, influencers, and digital platforms that have completely transformed the way we think about style.
Wow.
We'll be back in a flash to explore this exciting and ever-evolving world.
I can't wait.
Don't go anywhere.
I'll be right here. Welcome back to our deep dive into the contrasting worlds of 90s kids and Gen Z in Bangladesh. We were just talking about 90s fashion and how it was all about practicality and comfort. But now, it's time to step into the whirlwind of Gen Z fashion.
Get ready for a visual feast. Gone are the days of slow-moving trends. Gen Z's closets are bursting with individuality, fueled by the constant stream of inspiration on platforms like Instagram and TikTok.
It's fascinating how social media has really democratized fashion. Now, anyone with a smartphone can become a trendsetter. It's amazing. But this accessibility also comes with a new set of pressures. Do you think this constant exposure to ever-changing trends affects Gen Z's relationship with fashion, their sense of self-expression, and even their spending habits?
It's a really interesting point. In the 90s, fashion felt more grounded,
Yeah.
more about personal style than chasing the latest trend. Now it seems like there's this pressure to keep up, to have the newest items, the right look for every occasion. It makes you wonder if Gen Z feels empowered by this or overwhelmed by it.
It's probably a bit of both. I mean,
Yeah.
it's incredible to see young people using fashion as a tool to express their individuality, to experiment with different styles, and to connect with like-minded communities online.
Right.
But it's also important to be mindful of the potential downsides of consumerism, right? And the pressure to conform to, these ever-changing beauty standards.
Yeah.
It's a delicate balance.
Definitely. Okay, let's shift gears to something that's been a cornerstone of Bangladeshi culture for generations.
Yeah.
Family and tradition. Those of us who grew up in the 90s might remember those bustling joint families, close-knit neighborhoods where everyone knew your name, and the important role extended family played in raising children.
It was a different time, wasn't it?
It was.
It was a world where family ties were strong and traditions were passed down through generations. I mean, think about those vibrant celebrations, right?
Yeah.
Like Eid and Pohela Boishakh, filled with delicious food, colorful clothing, music, and customs that had been practiced for centuries. It was this rich tapestry of cultural heritage woven into the fabric of daily life.
Those memories are so vivid, so heartwarming. But families and traditions are evolving.
They are.
Gen Z is experiencing a different dynamic. Smaller families are becoming more common. Globalization is influencing everything, from food to music to relationships. Even celebrations are taking on this more virtual, globally connected feel.
Right. I mean, it's true. Gen Z, they are navigating a world where traditional values and modern influences intersect.
Right.
It raises questions about how they are balancing these different forces, how they are defining family, and how they are carrying on traditions in a world that's constantly changing.
It's a fascinating evolution.
Yeah.
Do you think Gen Z feels a sense of disconnect from those older traditions?
Right.
Or are they finding new ways to connect with their cultural heritage
Yeah.
in a way that resonates
Yeah.
with their modern lives?
I think it's a mix.
Okay.
I think some traditions might feel less relevant or harder to maintain
Sure.
in their fast-paced, globally connected world.
Yeah.
But I also see Gen Z finding creative ways to adapt and reinterpret traditions,
Right.
to blend the old with the new, for example. They might be using technology to connect with family members who live far away, sharing traditional recipes online, or finding new ways to celebrate cultural events that fit their modern lifestyles.
It's a reminder that culture isn't static.
Right.
It's constantly evolving
Yeah.
and adapting to the changing world around it.
Exactly. And that's what makes this conversation so fascinating, right?
Yeah.
We're seeing how these generational shifts are playing out in a specific cultural context, and it's shedding light on these broader trends that are happening all over the world.
Speaking of global trends, we can't ignore the elephant in the room, right?
Elephant in the room. Okay.
Technology and its pervasive influence on our lives. 90s kids might remember. Those days of limited connectivity, when face-to-face interactions were the norm, and technology wasn't this ever-present force.
Imagine that.
We socialized through phone calls, letters,
Gasp.
or gasp, actually
there we-
meeting up in person.
Wow. A world where you couldn't instantly connect
Yeah.
with someone through a screen. It's hard to imagine, isn't it?
But for Gen Z, social interaction is largely defined by platforms like Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat,
Yeah.
and TikTok.
Right.
Their relationships, their self-image, even their perception of the world is shaped by these digital spaces. It's mind-boggling to think about. How much technology has transformed their social lives. It's amazing how they can connect with people from all over the world, share their experiences, and access information
Yeah.
instantly.
It is amazing.
But are there downsides to this constant connectivity? Is Gen Z missing out on some of the deeper, more meaningful connections
Yeah.
that come with face-to-face interaction?
It's a valid concern.
Yeah.
And it's something researchers are still trying to understand fully. On the one hand, these digital platforms can foster a sense of community and belonging,
Right.
especially for young people who might feel isolated or marginalized in their offline lives.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, there's a risk of social comparison, FOMO, fear of missing out,
Right.
and just this constant pressure to present a perfect image online, which
Yeah.
can be detrimental to mental health and well-being.
That's true.
It's a double-edged sword, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it raises questions about how Gen Z is navigating these complexities, how they are forming relationships, and how they are developing their sense of self in a world that's increasingly online.
It's a fascinating and ever-changing landscape.
Yeah.
And it highlights the importance of, digital literacy, critical thinking skills, and the ability to discern between healthy and unhealthy online behaviors.
Absolutely.
And it's a reminder
Yeah.
that technology is a tool. And like any tool, it can be used for good or for bad.
Right.
It's up to us to use it wisely
Right.
and to guide the next generation in navigating its complexities.
Well said. And speaking of the next generation, we've been focusing on the differences between 90s kids and Gen Z. But it's important to remember that they're also shaped by shared experiences and influences
Yeah.
both generations have witnessed: rapid technological advancements, economic shifts, and cultural changes that have impacted their worldviews and values.
That's a really important point. It's easy to focus on the differences, but it's also crucial to acknowledge the common ground, the
Yeah.
shared humanity that connects us across generations.
Exactly. And that's what makes this deep dive so compelling, right?
Right.
We're exploring the nuances of generational experiences, understanding how different forces have shaped their realities, and recognizing that both 90s kids and Gen Z have these unique perspectives and contributions to offer the world.
Well said. Now, before we wrap up this fascinating journey, we need to address one final and
Right.
perhaps the most debated question.
Oh, okay.
It's the age-old query that sparks endless discussions and friendly rivalries.
Are you ready for this?
I think so. The question that's been on everyone's mind throughout this whole deep dive, which generation had it better?
Oh, wow.
90s kids,
Okay.
with their simpler times of face-to-face connections, or Gen Z,
Okay.
with their instant access to information and a world of possibilities at their fingertips?
Ah, the million-dollar question. It sparks endless debates, nostalgic reminiscing.
It does.
But is there really a definitive answer? I don't think so. I think each generation faces its own unique set of advantages and challenges shaped by the social, economic, and technological landscape of their time.
You're absolutely right. It's not about declaring a winner or a loser. It's about understanding the nuances of each generation's experience and appreciating what each brings to the table.
Exactly. Perhaps, instead of focusing on who had it better, we should be asking, what can we learn from each other?
Yeah, that's a good point.
None of these kids can offer insights into the value of patience, resilience, and, building strong communities in a less digitally driven world.
And Gen Z can teach us about adaptability, embracing new technologies, and challenging conventional norms. It's about recognizing the strengths of each generation and finding ways to bridge the gap,
Right.
to learn from each other, and to build a future that benefits from the unique perspectives of both.
Beautifully said. And for you, our listener, we leave you with this final thought. As we journeyed through the contrasting worlds of 90s kids and Gen Z in Bangladesh, what has resonated most with you?
What aspects of your own childhood,
Yeah.
regardless of when you grew up, do you cherish the most?
And how do you see these generations shaping the
Well,
future?
they build bridges
Yeah.
between their different experiences or create even wider divides.
We'd love to hear your thoughts. Share your reflections with us on social media using hashtag 90sVZs in Bangladesh.
Until next time,
Keep exploring
keep questioning
and keep diving deep.
into the fascinating tapestry of human experience.